your part of the job to do as well, to take home with you. We can do our part. It's not a Norwegian company, and we're not on Indian soil. So, you know, that rules out those two sort of legal dimensions, so to say. But what we can do, and here I must admit, as a good Norwegian, I hate to say it, but, you know, that Swedes are right, but you are right. I mean, we have been too timid and too modest. You know, it's a political issue, and we have the right and the responsibility to say what we want to use our money for. And for that, I think we need to improve our guidelines. And that's a mobilization issue. It's a political issue. And there are several issues that should be included and should be clarified from now on. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this discussion that we are having today is a very important discussion, and I think discussions like this should continue in forums like this, but also in a much broader context, because I think what is at stake here is larger than the issue of Monsanto and the issue of GMOs. The issue is mixing business and ethics, and could we or should we mix business and ethics? And in my view, we have no choice. Economic rationality is by definition amoral. It's not about morality, it's about efficiency and preferences. And the regulation that we have of the marketplace, the legal regulation, is independent of morality. Think, for example, of taxes and tax evasion. Tax evasion is perfectly legal as long as you don't break the tax law. And this is the same with all regulation. Evasion of regulation is legal as long as you don't break the law. So if you do not mix business and ethics, morality disappears from the marketplace. And if we go back to Aristotle, what distinguishes us from other forms of life is our moral capacity. So if morality disappears, humanity disappears. And this is what is at stake in my view.
And the last word to you, Vandana.
I think the undue influence of Monsanto, both in the market as well as on political decision-making, is really a very, very serious issue. Because country after country that has made sovereign democratic decisions to not allow GMOs, the issue you were saying, why don't they ban it? They ban it. Brazil banned it. Then the bribes start, and the corruption start, and the subversion start. And in India, we have a saying, you can't clap with one hand alone. For our current agriculture minister, the other side of the hand is Monsanto. And Monsanto's bribes tilt democracy. So that the honest environment minister who did the public hearings is then dominated by the money that the agriculture minister has, because he can then move that money to influence further decisions. And that issue of corruption is usually invisible, unrecorded, and just like the invisible impact of genetic pollution, this political pollution and political corruption is important, but we shift. We see the shift. Now, most of the world actually at this point is voting for GMO-free agriculture and food. Most of the world. It's a very tiny group of countries that have been influenced and corrupted. So that's why the issue of throwing your weight behind those countries, ministries, regions where democracy is still robust. The case of our ban on the eggplant is very much a case of Indian democracy at work. But we need your solidarity. I don't want to tell you what you should do, but I would call you through solidarity to say support our democratic struggles. Support our struggles to be able to make our decisions. On the issue of how can you feed the world, I think the data is out there. The documentation is very, very strong. And any investor who's not reading that is not doing their homework. Read the document out of the Union of Concerned Scientists in the US. It's called Failure to Yield, showing crop by crop, region by region, not in a single case did yields increase. Our analysis in India on the cotton show that. And it's because the technology is not a yield-increasing technology in the first place. It's a toxin introduction technology, not a yield-increasing technology. And the alternatives are abundant. The Andhra Pradesh government, Andhra Pradesh is where the suicide started. The Andhra Pradesh government is now building alternatives. 1.7 million hectares are under ecological farming, and poor women are growing more food per acre than any industrial system. The Navdanya movement, our movement, same, all the data shows biodiverse organic systems produce more food. And again, because there's always this thing, is it a UN study? Even a UN study, the International Assessment on Agricultural Science, Technology and Development, shows that, in fact, ecological systems are much more relevant to produce food. So where should the investments be happening? In small companies that build open source seed, which are today getting wiped out, just as those who don't want a Microsoft monopoly invest in Linux. And we need to support the Linuxes of seed. Similarly, I think companies and groups and cooperatives and public institutions which are promoting organic farming, they are starving for investment. And I think innovative ways need to be created on that. I totally support Ignacio about the fact that the environmental damage of this technology is so serious that it does qualify for gross environmental damage, but it's not gross in visible terms, it's gross in the impact on life and therefore on the future. And that is, first, that biodiversity is pushed to extinction. Just the two crops I mentioned. Cotton, we used to have 1,500 varieties. Now there's only BT cotton, BT cotton, BT cotton. We have 4,500 brinjal varieties. If BT brinjal comes, there'll be BT brinjal, BT brinjal. Look at soybean, what you said, go to the Amazon, go to Bolivia. The pollution, the fact that we are losing the biodiversity wealth of this planet through pollution. And I think the creation of superweeds and the emergence of pests is an ecological problem. It's a pollution problem. We are polluting our ecosystems through creation of superweeds and superpests. And finally, I think the issue of the emergence of monopolies, unjust monopolies, again, the distortion of intellectual property law at every level, and threatening governments which are trying to regulate, threatening the governments in India, threatening governments to say, you do not have a right, means there's no role for any society's democratic structures. And I think that threat has to be responded to. And the data is so abundant. I can offer my services to the Norwegian movements to turn this into a major movement, political movement. And as you said, it has to be from politics to ethics to disinvestment.
Thanks very much, everyone. I'm not going to try and come to a conclusion or try and sum up what we've heard today, partly since we're now well over time, partly since it is a question for Norwegians to take forward this agenda, and partly since I'm not sure what the conclusions are. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your inputs and for listening. Thank you to Socrith for organising the event. To all our panellists, and in particular, thanks to Vandana for her inspiring talk and analysis and thoughts. Thanks very much.